Hey, so today we're going to be going over how to search collections for your collaborative archive project, or honestly, anytime you're looking for new artists to just get into or explore or to find for some other reason. So the library resources are great for databases and for things that are already within the library. There's JSTOR for articles and publications. And then there's also ArtStore for images that have been already already curated. And so what we're talking about here is kind of it's really the more real world use of research outside of the academic pathway. So the idea is that you're looking for something to add, whether you're teaching a class or you're taking a class and you need to find something that maybe is outside of the dominant narrative, which is kind of the whole point of this assignment, right? So our research techniques are going to be a little tricky. So really quick, I wanted to show you three different resources. I'll share my screen with you. Oops. The first one is going to be the Portland Art Museum. So the Portland Art Museum, if you go to their homepage, you can just Google them and go to the first one that comes up. Up on this top bar where it says exhibitions, that's one way to find artists. So you could look at current exhibitions. Right now, the current exhibition for photography is Ansel Adams in Our Time. Looking at an exhibition, especially one that deals with more than one artist, is a great way to search to find somebody new. So if you like landscape, if you're curious about Ansel Adams, you can look at the information that they have here on the website. They also have these tabs, as most public institutions do. Now, any public institution or any institution that gets public funds typically has something that they have promised in return to the public, the community that they are located in. And that usually is some sort of education or some sort of collaboration with that community. So if you're looking at institutions like the Smithsonian, or if you're looking at a public university's collection of images, the Portland Art Museum is a great example. The Oregon Historical Society is another one. So anybody who gets public money in one form or another usually has education and public resources that they will share. If you go to resources here, there are videos from the curators that put this show together. And then there's videos from each of the individual artists whose work is also in this exhibition, who's being exhibited in conjunction with and in conversation with Ansel Adams. So this is a great source. So you could decide, you could start out at the top of the rabbit hole with Ansel Adams, and maybe you end up with Catherine Opie, right? So there's a really good way of kind of thinking about how to go about these strategies in a different way than you normally would. Nobody else is setting the criteria for you. You are setting it for yourself. So yes, that's a little more difficult because it might be newer for some folks, but it's also more freeing because then you get to pick your artist. All right. That's one way of going through, and that's looking at exhibitions that are already or have been. The other would be to look and search the collection. So if you search the collection, it will take you to that page, and you can search by artists, or you can search by the medium. If you know who you're looking for and you know that some institution is already collecting them, for instance, in the Edward Curtis exhibition, I know that Portland Art Museum already has they have one of the big catalogs of the American Indian that he created. And so if I wanted to, I could go into artists and I could look under C for Curtis. And while I'm there, I could see, oh, Harry Callahan, that's a photographer. I could look at Julia Margaret Cameron, that's a photographer, right? So there's lots of different ways to search. I don't see Edward Curtis here. Maybe he's under another, but you could also search, let's see, photographers. And you could look through the images. Now, collections mean that these are items, these are images that Portland Art Museum or whatever the institution is owns, not necessarily what they've shown. So that's why exhibitions is a good way to search, and also looking at the collection. All right, so I'm going to get out of that. And next we see the Museum of Contemporary Photography. That's another resource that I listed for you all. This is also connected to Columbia College Chicago. And so they have a lot of different exhibitions and education programming. And so again, you can look at the collection. You can also go to exhibitions. You can also go to education. So under each of these areas, let's go to exhibitions. So we look at past. So they've got a huge collection of exhibitions that you could take a look at if you're interested. You know, what artists did they have available, or what exhibitions did they do in the 1970s? Of course, the information that you have about these artists is going to be more and more digitized as you go, maybe from the early aughts on. Back in the 1990s, the 1980s, 1970s, digital meant something a little different. And even in the 1990s, that was still pretty early, believe it or not. And so it's not really until you get to, honestly, over the past few years, 21 and 20 during the pandemic, you know, everything went online. And so these last 2 years have probably the most rich digital information. Everything else is digitized to a greater or lesser degree. The events in the Museum of Contemporary Photography are really interesting. It's a place for you to get in a little deeper with a particular artist. Bin Don's work is pretty cool, but you can look at layered landscapes, right? So some of these, as you know, are just, some of these are artist talks behind the lens, and some of them are curatorial discussions. Some of them are slideshows with curatorial assistants, right? So there's going to be a lot of different ways for you to engage with this work. All right. Another place you can go, Strange Fire Collective is on our list of resources as well. And this particular resource highlights queer, trans, and in general LGBTQ civil rights and activism, and artists who work along that genre. So you could explore the archive here and take a look at their weekly features, which is a bunch of different media that could help you with a particular artist, exhibitions if you're trying to find somebody, and then also publications. So just like any other resource, it's going to be kind of a mixed bag, and you probably will have to search a little bit here, a little bit there. But if you're just looking for that artist and that's your first step, going to exhibitions might be a way to explore somebody's work that you like. So for me, I usually start with the visuals. I'll look at the topic and think, that's interesting. I'm still more interested in the visuals. Okay, so let's see, Humboldt Arts Foundation. Oh, who are they? And I would click that and I would look into that. I'd read about the reference to the title, 4 degrees. This is a call for work. So this might be something that, you know, not really looking at this yet. You could also look at this artist. Oh, I really like this artist. I like that work that I saw. So you're going to have to kind of hunt around for somebody that you want if you don't know what you want yet. But those are 3 places to start. It'll give you a couple ideas of, who you should be looking at. Follow up with the question of, how do they fit within the assignment? How do they further the purpose of the assignment? How do I relate to them? And go from there. All right, I hope this was helpful.